to the 8th edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today we're going to be talking about Fzzzt, or Fzzzt, or Fzzzt. It's a game that is heavy on mechanics, light on complexity, and heavy on fun. Okay, so as you can see, Fzzzt is a card game. It's basically an auction game at its heart. Let me first show you a little bit about the different cards in the game. Basically, there's two kinds of cards. There's your robot cards here, and then there's your production unit cards here. And so what you're going to do is deal out 8 cards from the center deck. And then once you go through the deck, the game's over. Everybody gets a starting hand of the same, roughly the same cards. So you get 4 cards. You can see this robot here, and you get a couple robots, and you get this mechanic. And so the breakdown of the cards is basically these little lightning bolts are your money, and this is the points that the robot is worth at the end of the game. And this symbol, or multiple symbols at the bottom, are used in building the production units. So early on in the game, it's going to be important to acquire more robots that have higher money value, as well as hopefully useful tools or resources, whatever you want to call these things, as well as points. Points are always good. So let's see, how does the game work? So first round, you're going to deal out 8 of these. So, and you're going to flip up the one at the end of the row here, and that's where this symbol comes into play. So you can see this gives you 4. So what that says is make it so that there's 4 cards showing. So you show the next 4. So you're not going to know everything that's available in this round of play to auction. So you're going to be kind of taking your best guess as far as, okay, well, this looks pretty useful now, but do I want to wait and get something that's even more useful? Or am I going to let my opponent have this, and maybe nothing more useful is going to come up, so I really should try to grab this now. And so how do you acquire the cards? Well, basically, the player with the spanner, and this does not come with the game, the game says that you can use the box to pass around. You see you got the little spanner there, or the spanner on the back here. You can pass that around. Whoever has this is the first person to bid, and then it bids clockwise. So let's say I want to get this card. Everything is a blind bidding, so you take the card, put it face down, everybody gets to bid, everybody reveals their card simultaneously. Whoever has the highest money or energy, I guess you could call it, gets the card. If there's a tie, whoever has the spanner gets the win, and then they have to pass the spanner to the person that lost the tie. And then that person now has to become the first bidder. And sometimes you don't want the spanner, so you'll try to force a tie if you know that there's probably going to be a tie based on the cards that people have played, so that they get the spanner and they have to bid first and reveal their intentions. Because you can actually bid more than 1 card at a time. You could bid 2 cards or whatever. Sometimes you can bluff because you've got this mechanic that's worth 0 money, and you put 2 out and they go, wow, he really wants that, or and I really want it more, so I'm going to put out a whole bunch of cards. And you get them to pay more money. So let's say I won this card here. So I take that and I put it aside, and it goes down over to the side here in my deck, so to speak. And now I'm left with these 3 cards. So now I'm down money, and we keep going until all these cards run out. Now let's show the rest of these. So once all of these are purchased, you're going to deal out 8 new cards. But before you do that, you're allowed to go through your deck that you've purchased, and then you put in front of you any of these production unit cards. So you can see this production unit takes a gear and a oil and gives you 6 points at the end of the game. So if this is in front of me, I can go through and find 1 card per round that will fit under there. So I've got this guy here, and he's an oil. He'll go under here, and so I can get rid of him. So the idea there is that I wouldn't want to do it with him because he's worth 5 money. But if I had a guy that was worth 1 money that was an oil, like this guy here, he's worth no money, and he's also worth no points. But he can be any of the 4 different resources. So I'd chuck him now, get him out of my hand under there, and get this, get the fulfillment of this production unit started. And now I've lost a card that's basically dead weight in my hand during the auction round. So I'll put one under there, just for argument's sake, I'll put this one under here. You can put one card each under each of these after each round. And you can actually, at the end of the game, score double or triple or however many times. So that right now I've just got this one card here that takes an oil with him. So if I put more cards with him underneath by the end of the game, let's say I had 4 cards under here, then he'd be worth 12 points because I'd fulfill this, I'd produce this unit 4 times. And you still get the points for the robot itself. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that even though this guy has all 4 symbols, you can only use one of those symbols. So you can be this or this or this or this. You can't be all 4. So in this case, I could say, well, he'll fulfill the oil. And then I still need to find another card that has a gear on it to fulfill the points. If I don't fulfill the points at the end of the game, I actually lose this amount of points from my score. So as the game goes on and these appear, you almost don't want to get these unless you're pretty sure you can fulfill that without losing points. So it kind of reminds me of a light version of Raw, where the makeup of the field here is changing and you're trying to collect these sets of these different components to get a better score. And there's a lot of times there are going to be cards out here that you don't want to get, but you always have to bid a card, at least one card, if you have a card, to try and get it. So a lot of times, especially in the 2-player game, there's lots of back and forth, everybody's getting a card, and then a card like this will come along, and it's worth 3 money, but it's not minus 1 point, and doesn't provide any resources to build a production unit. And early game it's not so bad because it's like, oh, there's 3 money, that's good for later. But at the end of the game, it's worthless. You don't want that anymore. But you'll find, it's like, oh, well, somebody's got to win it. And sometimes you'll, like I was saying before, you'll force a tie because the other person has the spanner and say, oh, you both bid 0, but he gets it because he has the spanner. He's like, I didn't want that. It's negative points. I don't want a negative. Or another example is if this card comes up, and this actually happened in a game I just played with my son, and there were 2 of these production units out, and he'd done a good job of providing resources for all his other production units, and I had blown out of cards. So he had his 2 cards left, and he was forced to take these. Well, there's negative 9 points right there. He was only able to fulfill 2 of these resources. So after each round where you've put a card under any production units might have, you shuffle up your remaining cards, and then you draw 6 more, and then you deal the 8 cards out again, and you keep going and going and going until you run through the deck 1 time, and then you add up your points at the end of the game. At the end of the game, you go through and put as many cards as you can under these, and you try to figure out the best way to sort through all the possible resources and get the highest number of points, and whoever has the most points wins. It plays very differently from a 2. I played it 2 and 3 player. And the 2-player, like I was saying earlier, you're just kind of alternating cards and trying to figure out which one you get. And your decks get a little bit bigger. You score probably, I wouldn't say you always score more points, but like I scored the 13 cost one 3 times. And that would never happen, I don't think, in a 3-player or 4-player game. Now with the 3-player game, and I assume even more so with the 4-player game, it's really sort of a frustration in a good way how many cards are revealed. And so it's just a different kind of tension. It's like in the 2-player game, you're kind of setting people up to get the bad ones. And you kind of have to sort of flip your mind a little bit as far as the bidding goes. And it's like, well, okay, I'm going to stick him with this one. Totally worthless. It's sort of a weird kind of hand management aspect to the auction. It's hard to really pin it down. That's the sort of thing. It's got the little auction, mechanic. It's got sort of the hand management and, I don't know, worker placement to stick the cards under there or whatever. It's a pretty fun little game. It's really nice with 2. It plays quick, but it plays also well up to 3. I assume 4 is good, but it's a nice 2 or 3. So if you've got 2 people, you can bring it out. If you got, you're waiting for another game and there's a 3rd person, bust it out. And it doesn't take too long, and it's got fun artwork, and it's just a fun theme. You can see like this guy's sort of a silly looking guy with a long neck, and you got this little robot, green robot, and that little sort of sad looking blue robot. Where's that one? They're Fzzzt, sort of a crazy, silly looking robot. Pretty good art there.